Dashboards are great ways for users or viewers to interact with data and kind of run their own mini analyses and test different scenarios. And that's a very useful situation to build for. And at the same time, it's not every situation. In some situations, we don't want users to have a kind of free control over the data set and choose their own adventure. We want to guide them along a particular story arc that we control. So it's much more like a presentation rather than a sandbox. So this is covered by the Tableau feature called Stories, which is our last little plus icon down here. Stories are basically just PowerPoints inside Tableau itself. So we start by dragging our sheets in. So I can drag geospatial scatterplot in. Notice you might have some cards here. In fact, I was just playing around between videos and hid them, and so you can hide these too. The important thing is we always want to add a caption here. We want to say something like sales. So we'll say O list sales are not distributed equally across the country, across Brazil, let's say. Sales are concentrated in the South, particularly in Sao Paulo, SP, in Rio de Janeiro, RJ. Okay, something like this. Notice that it doesn't really do this well. You may have to resize this to make it a little bit more legible to your audience. And you want to give this a name. We'll call this O-list sales. Okay, so this is our first kind of touch point. Again, the point here is to make a narrative arc. So you want these things to be all connected together, not just kind of a one-off kind of thing. You want to really give a sense of what the overall flow is. So for this next one, whatever it is, we want to really say something specific. So you can say something like this. And I'm gonna have to go back. I want to do this quickly. So I'm going to say my dashboard here. No. The problem is I don't even, okay, good. We'll say in home appliances. So I just needed to make sure, what is this actually representing? So we'll say in home appliances, a common sales category, or let's say a popular sales category. Sales category. Sao Paulo dominates. And this is, so the reason this is a narrative arc is because it's connected to this idea that Sao Paulo and Rio, we'll say Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro dominate. The reason this is important is because it's a narrative arc between these two pieces. We point out at the beginning in the geospatial plot that you can just see that this is the case, where then we're pointing out that this is happening across a single product category, and then a natural next step would be to say something like this. This here, we would say, in fact, or we'll say we observe similar trends across almost all product categories. Rio and Sao Paulo account for the large majority of total sales. And this isn't quite right yet because I need to go back to sheet 3 and I actually need to adjust, like I need this to look right. So in this particular case, I actually have to go to the dashboard and select these things like this. So now my sheet is correct, my story looks correct. And again, I don't like these cards here very much. So I'm going to go to sheet 3 and I'm going to hide this card and I'm going to hide this card. So now I just have the kind of the vanilla thing here. You might need to add an annotation to kind of deal with these things. So you can even say, for instance, here, blue area account for the vast majority of total sales. Roughly don't know, let's say 80% in each category. So this, and again, it's just meant to kind of give us a basic feel for it. But you hopefully get the idea that there should be a narrative arc here. We noticed that sales are not spread out equally across the country. They're clustered around a couple metropolitan areas in the South. If we look at those more closely in a particular product category, we see that they vastly dominate, but then this is not unique. This is actually holding up across all the major product categories that if we look at Sao Paulo and Rio, that together they really dominate. They really dominate everything. Now, if we go into present mode, that's this little like screen thing here. And oh gosh, you can't really see that, can you? My point with that is that you can go full screen first of all, but then when we're clicking on things and doing stuff, it now gets everything's static. Once you're in presentation mode, you can't change things. Everything is the highlights, all the actions, they're now kind of a static presentation mode. Just kind of clearly demarcate playing around with things in a dashboard and presenting things. In the present mode, everything's static. You can't have users interacting with stories like you can dashboards. But again, just to highlight the major difference between dashboards and stories, dashboards are meant to be one-stop shops that show all of the information about a particular story in a way that the user can interact with. And we drive that interactivity with actions like highlight, set membership, changing parameters, all of that good stuff. And we're doing this in order to give the user a hook into performing their own mini analyses without having to interact with the full Tableau suite in order to get started. So that's kind of an exploration and report out type thing, with the emphasis towards exploration and less towards report out. For stories, it's much more tightly controlled. We really are thinking about guiding the viewer along a narrative arc, and it is not geared towards exploration at all. In fact, we don't want them exploring. We want them following us through whatever story we're trying to tell them. So they really are two different strategies for displaying the end of your analytics result. One that's a little bit more open-ended, namely dashboards, and one that's a little bit more guided, namely stories.